Welcome back to Motorsport and Scale. In this episode, we're going to carry on working on the Model Factory Hiro Porsche 917K project. This car is the car that won the 1971 Le Mans. Yeah, so let's just get into it. So in this episode, we are going to be tackling getting the body, finish prepping the body, get some paint on it. I'm not quite sure how far I'll go in this episode. It depends. I might just edit everything down and we'll go from where we are right here to having the body finished. Deckled, clear coated, everything. As far as the base body, I won't probably not cover all the auxiliary components like the headlights and windshield and stuff like that. So what I got to do now is remember that I had this all mocked up and I did the rough body work with it all mocked up, and I had it glued together when I did that for the lower side pods and that to get the alignment done. I'm going to be careful with this thing. But right now, to put it back together, I've got a few fit issues, despite it being all perfectly fit before. So there's something that's holding this up a little bit, so I gotta figure that out. I think it's part of the metal frame and the corners here are hitting, so it's just holding up about 1 millimeter. So I got to sort that out. The other problem I had that I got to sort before I really do anything is there's locating pins cast into the resin, and then there's holes in this lower piece. When I took it apart, a couple of those broke, and just because glue got in those holes. I was trying not to glue those holes, but it was inevitable. So the holes are kind of half filled with the dried CA, and then the pins are partially broken. So I just need to clean that up, probably drill in some new locating pins or holes to put some rod in for some new locating pins. So we'll get that all sorted out as well. And we got to get the hinges installed for the doors. Get the hinges installed in the doors, and there's a few other little pieces for the rear cover on the inside that I got to get installed. And then once those things are done, we can start getting this thing in paint and see how it goes. Got to get a layer of sealer primer on here. See how it looks. I'm sure there'll be a bit more body work to do, some scratches to be filled, a little bit of waviness to be corrected, that sort of thing. That's to be expected at this point. So yeah, I will get started on that. One of the other things I gotta fix, some of this fiberglass here. Which side was it that was sticking out? It goes on this side. You can kind of see the fiberglass, at the back of the wheel well there. It's got a bit of a step, so right now it's all bolted together. So I'm going to, I might film this, just sort of clamp this up, because you can push it over quite easily. It kind of pops out here. It's just pressure fit in there. So I'll just clamp it over, apply a bit of heat to soften the resin up, get them held in place, let it dry, or cool down, and that'll fix that. Just a little bits of fettling here and there to get it where it needs to be. So, but it's super close, and it's nearing the end. So yeah, we'll check back in with you shortly with something that I'm going to do. Hey, just a quick check-in. I'm just working on fixing the alignment of this a little bit with tweaking the resin. So it's gonna be kind of hard to film. You're not really gonna be able to see much, but I just wanted to quickly sort of talk about or try to demo what I'm doing. So in this case, I'm using a hair dryer. This thing gets pretty hot, so I set it on high. Sorry, that's really loud. So I just apply heat to the area that you want to try to move for the resin, and get it hot enough to the point where you can it starts getting soft and malleable. And then you can just hold it in position. It's a little hot in your fingers, but it's usually doable. Trick is not to overheat the resin. If you get it too hot, then it gets it'll just all deform and lose any shape, so there is a risk of that, so you got to be a bit careful. So anyways, I'll just try it. I'll just leave the camera rolling and fix this. You won't really be able to see because I can't hold it up in an angle for the camera, but anyways, here we go. It's a lot better than it was. There's still a minor step there, but I'm not actually too worried about it because that was, in real life, that thing didn't fit that well. These liners, they're pretty thin, very minimalist. I might sand that a bit, but I've got most of the step out. It's more or less looks like that's the way it should be. So I think that's it. That's good for that. But that's how you can manipulate the resin if you find that it's warped or out of shape or anything. So making sure the backs are still. I've already done the other side, so I'm happy with that. So we will carry on. We'll catch you in the next little update. All right, just a quick check-in here. Show you a bit of progress I've made. I've got everything in primer, as you can see. I'm trying a new primer. This is the Zero Paints 2-part etching primer, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is an epoxy primer. I don't think it's a urethane. That's based on the smell. It doesn't smell like urethane. It's not acting like urethane when you spray it either, or when you thin it. The stuff's kind of thick. Zero Paints just will supply this with the hardener, which is a 1:1 mix ratio and no thinner. And I emailed Steve at Hero Boy looking for some information on this, and I have heard diddly squat from the guy, and I don't know, I said it 3 weeks ago. So not impressed with his customer service. I buy this from a place here in Canada that's semi-local to me. Still need to get it mailed, but it's he's in Western Canada, so it's not too bad, and he stocks a lot of it, so it's convenient from that regard. But the reason I'm trying this stuff, I've used their paints before, and I like their paints. They got good colors. You just got to be careful in using them on plastic. On resin, it's no big deal, because it's true automotive paint that that this stuff is. So it's pretty hot in terms of the reducer it uses, so it can react poorly with styrene if you're not careful. So as long as you know that, it actually works pretty well, and they got nice colors. But anyways, I wanted to give this stuff a go because I have struggled in the past with getting paint and primers to stick to resin. And it's a pain in the ass if you ever need to mask over anything. You're always worried about you're going to be peeling the paint off and yada yada yada. So I'm giving this stuff a try. Supposedly it's marketed for resin and metal as an etch primer. Like I say, I'm pretty sure it's epoxy. I don't have confirmation on that yet, but given my past experience with automotive paints and whatnot. It smells like and it behaves like an epoxy, so rather than a urethane. So that's what I think it is. It's a bit of a pain to spray. I ended up using my 0.5 gun for it, and even at that it was still a little grainy, but not bad. I found you basically just hose it on. It levels out beautifully, actually. It goes on looking a little shit, but then it actually levels out pretty good. You got to be careful for dusting. Like I got dusting on the inside here. I don't know if you can actually see it there. There's a bit of dusting in, where I'm spraying on one side, and you get the blowback. So it does that really easily. It dries pretty quick. So yeah, so far so good. And I painted the tub in this stuff as well, and I did some tape tests on it, and I had no issues with lifting. So it looks like it's going to solve that problem. So it might be the one I use moving forward. So we'll see. I've also seen, I haven't tried it on large resin pieces. I've done it on small ones. I've seen guys use the metal primer that Tamiya or Mr. Hobby sells. I use it on metal parts. I think I'm showing you spray that stuff on. I use it in a spray can. But I've seen guys use it on the actual resin bodies. So I might give that a try, actually. I still got the dash to do, so I'm going to try it on the dash. I'll spray it on. I'll do it on the other underside, do some tape tests after I paint it and see if it peels off. But that's another potentially viable option, which is a nice one because I like that stuff in the spray can because you can just hose that shit on. It dries fast. It doesn't seem to, even if it's too heavy, it dries back to a very thin film. I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems to work okay as well. It's not super durable, but it might be another viable option. I'll do some testing. Anyways, as expected, I'll get back to the actual project here. As expected, spraying the first layer of primer on here has revealed, some more work needs to be done. There's some imperfections here and there, some sanding marks that I didn't get out entirely. There's a little bit of my primary body work that's a little rough. Expected 100%. It's actually not that bad. I got a bit of, I don't know if you can see here. You can see the variation in the tone, but that's because of the body work. Filler is a little bit more porous than obviously the resin. So there's some pinholes there. So that just needs to get addressed. But now that I got everything sealed up, it should be good. Next step will be to going with some Tamiya fine white putty. I like this stuff because it spreads out fine, and it's fine. It feathers really nice, and it's fairly easy to sand, and it dries quickly. So it's good when you're just trying to get everything done. Start to actually work it. So that's what I'll be doing next. I'm gonna let this dry. Probably get at it tomorrow. I'll leave it. I sprayed this, I don't know, early afternoon. It's 9 o'clock right now in the evening, so it's been on there. It's dry. It's definitely touch dry. It's workable. It's probably sandable at this point, but I'll give it till tomorrow. So I'll start doing the putty work and then start sanding out the imperfections tomorrow evening. So anyways, that's it for now. We will catch you on the next update. All right, just a bit of an update before I get a bit more primer on this. I got all the body panels sanded out. I used, I think I was talking about this before, the Tamiya white putty to fill in any imperfections and whatnot. So that's all done, sanded out. You can see some areas where I sanded has gone back down to the resin, so I'll need to give another coat of the epoxy primer to ensure I got a good bond. I just don't want to have any paint issues. So anyways, what I actually want to talk about, you can see here on this side, looks a little odd. So what I'm doing here is trying to replicate the fiberglass work they do. So obviously the main section hand laid in a mold. This is the underside, so this will be the hand laid side. This will be the mold side, so it's usually quite smooth and nice. When you hand lay fiberglass, it's, you know, it's rough on one side. So that's the inside in this case. And then also these air ducts are bonded in afterwards with just strips of fiberglass mat laid in and then resin over. So what I've done here, just based on my reference pictures, is just trying to replicate that a little bit, because this is going to be open, so you'll be able to see the underside when this is displayed. So what I've done is I've just used Tamiya masking tape, and then I've gone over and sealed it in with Mr. Hobby liquid putty. I think that's what it's called. Hold on. With this stuff. So dissolved putty, that's what they call it. Which is, it's a bit of an interesting product. I find that, like, it works okay. It shrinks a lot as well, though, so if you're trying to fill a panel line with it, it's not really the best stuff, but to fill pinholes and stuff, it works well. And it might be a good option instead of using the Tamiya white putty, because you can kind of paint it on. So anyways, that's what I've done here. I have, you know, put the tape down, and then I've painted it over, or brushed it over with a micro brush, just those disposable ones that you can use, just to apply some texture, because again, this would have been done by hand and it would leave a texture, and this is something that they wouldn't and didn't, you know, finish. The complete underside of this particular car is left in its natural raw fiberglass. There's no primer on it, no paint on the inside, anything. So anyways, I've done that. I've done it around here. You can see in there pretty good. So we'll see. It's time. I'll throw some more primer over this, see how it looks. Oh, one thing I did, so I applied that, and then I took a fairly coarse, I think I used 220 or 240 grit sanding spudge, and just went over the putty to rough it up and knock off the high spots, any lumps in it, and to impart a bit of texture. And I've done the same thing over the whole thing. I've used a fairly coarse sandpaper to impart a bit of texture. You know, I tried to keep everything in one direction, more or less, to kind of mimic it. I think, you know, once I get my fiberglass color on there and a bit of shading and whatnot, it'll look okay. So anyways, that's the plan. This is all a bit of an experiment. I've not, obviously, I've not tried this technique before, so this is new. It could be an abject failure, who knows. But we'll give it a go. So yeah, I'm just about to take this back and shoot some more of the gray primer on here, just to unify the surface again. Then I'll wet sand that, probably 800,000 grit, get some finishing surface or primer on there, white all over the thing, and then we're on to the paint. So anyways, quick update. I'll check in with you once I'm a little farther along. Thanks. All right, a bit of a quick check-in before I move this a little bit farther forward. So got everything in primer. I've got all the inside of everything painted and masked off where it needs to be masked off, painted the headlight buckets. You can see on the inside of this, I've got the gray painted. I just masked this off just so avoid some overspray there. The rest will be fine. The direction I'll be spraying in won't create overspray there. You know, I've got some of the raw fiberglass there, I got some of the black, you know, and I didn't paint it, you know, full opacity on things like this because, you know, they probably didn't paint it that well. So inside there, so that's what I'm doing there. So that's that. The doors turned out pretty good. They were gray from the reference pictures I've seen. Yeah, they turned out really quite well. You know, the lower pods have got the inside painted. This one gets the fuel tank, which is right here. So it's going to be mostly hidden, but the parts that aren't are going to be the yellow sort of fiberglass color. I'll come in and do a wash and stuff and grunge it up a little bit to knock out the sort of the brightness of the yellow, but that's the plan on these. I left the underside, or I painted the underside with the yellow. So the intent here is, I'll be painting this white, rolling it to the underside, but I want a soft line. It's going to fade into this. There's going to be overspray on this of white, and that's exactly what I want. Those will be white. Same with this one. This is the side where the oil tanks are, so you'll be able to see the whole thing underneath the oil tanks here. Same with that. The only other one of note is what I did here. As you can see, I've tried something a little bit different. I did a bit of pre-shading with some smoke. Well, it's clear black from Mr. Hobby. Underneath, the reference pictures that I see of this opened have dark areas where the fiberglass has been glassed over, where components were added and so forth. So just trying to replicate that. It's a little bit dirty too, and I will dirty it up some more once I get the exterior done. Yeah, so it's not looking too bad. It's looking a little bright. But one thing to keep in mind about this, it's kind of like stage makeup, because this is going to be on the car and it's going to be displayed. It sits, like if the plane of the car was here, it sits like this. So it's always going to be in shadow. You're never going to be able to see it with direct light on it. So when you're looking under, like right now, obviously the light's shining on it, but that's kind of the view you get of this. It's this long sort of oblique angle or whatever. And it's going to be in shadow, like I said, so it's a little bit brighter than it really should be, but like I said, it's kind of like stage makeup. So anyways, I got all that painted, then I had to come back. After I put the primer on it, I found a couple little spots that needed touching up, so I touched them up, a little bit more filler, a little sanding, just touched in the primer on that. I painted the headlight bucket. So that's the other thing I'll talk about briefly, is just my strategy, methodology around masking and order of operation. It's always a great debate. What do you paint, the inside or the outside first on a model? And I struggle with it. I've done it both ways. I don't know which way is actually easier. I don't think one way is easier than the other. It just comes down to me, I think number one is risk, and then ease of masking. So what's the easiest thing to mask? When I talk about risk, that goes hand in hand with masking. Is it risky to mask over something? You got a bunch of decals, even though they're sealed in with clear coat doesn't make a decal stick any better than it's stuck. So you put a piece of masking tape over a decal that's been clear coat over, there's the risk of you're going to lift the decal, regardless of how many coats of clear you got over it. That does not help a decal stick better if you mask over it. So that's one of the considerations. That's one of the big risks that that I consider, which I do first, the inside and the outside. Also, how you mask something, will be influenced by that. You can see here I've been using this blue tape, which is a Mr. Hobby product, and it's their low-tack masking tape. So in theory, it's less likely to lift or peel paint. But then my major other consideration is ease of masking. Like, which way is it easier to paint something? In theory, I should always paint from light to dark. The dark colors will obviously cover light colors better. You gotta be careful with certain combinations of color, like putting blue over yellow. you could just end up having green if you're not careful, or it'll take a whole lot of blue to cover the yellow and make it look blue instead of green. So some of those things you got to be careful of. You might have to reprime over the yellow to paint the blue. Anyways, I usually do additive painting, right, where I'll take an assembly, like handlebars on a motorbike are a good example, because you got 4 or 5 different things, 4 or 5 different colors potentially. So I always approach it of I paint the whole thing, whatever, the one hardest color, or the one thing that's the easiest to mask first. So I'll paint that color, let's say the bar color. Then I'll mask off the bars, and then I'll paint the grips, and then I'll mask off the grips. Then I'll paint the clamps for the levers, and I'll mask them off, and etc. until you've got the whole thing painted. So that's what I sort of call additive painting or additive masking. Is you start with it unmasked, and then you keep reducing via taping to the component levels. And that's kind of what I've done here, right? Like there's two ways I could have approached this, right? I could have just left the headlight buckets unmasked, painted the white, got it all done, got it all glossed, then masked around them and painted black. But two things come to play. There's going to be decals here, so masking over the decals is risky. And number two, there's just way more stuff to mask over. Like if I was to come in and do these headlight buckets last, I got to mask not necessarily the whole body, but around the perimeter, and then have something to cover the rest to protect from overspray, especially when it's a white body and then you're painting black. Any overspray is going to be quite obvious. So this is much easier to go in, paint the black, mask it off, and then paint the white. In this case, I had everything primed in the white, so I went in, just no masking or anything, just painted it. So then I masked it off, and then came back and I sanded any of the black overspray off, sanded it down, and then just touched in the white primer, so that it's a unified color or tone. Then I'm going to be spraying the color coat on, which just helps even coverage and reduces the potential for tonal variation when I put my color coat on. So that's what I do. And that's, the same thing here. Like on this, I'm not going to do any masking, because the reference pictures I've seen of this car with this open, there's white overspray in here from when they painted the body. So I'm going to allow overspray to happen, because that's the way they did it in reality. So that's my methodology. Same with stuff like this. I'm not going to mask any of that off. If I get overspray on here from painting the edges, fair enough. The boys that painted this back in 1971 did the same thing. So that's how I'm approaching it. The only reason I've got the gray of the back firewall here masked off is because that would have actually been painted after the body, or at least the doors would have been closed and everything, so there's minimal possibility of overspray in there, and none of my reference photos show any overspray there, so I've masked that. It was just way easier to paint the gray and then mask this one area off, so that's what I've done. And if I get any overspray up here, you'll never see that, so it doesn't really matter. The doors, again, I'm not going to mask them because they're fairly easy to paint without the risk. Like I don't need to necessarily spray anywhere in an angle. It'll get it on the gray. So I think I'll be fine with those. And if I do get a bit of overspray, I'll just touch it up. So anyways, that's the plan. Next you'll see this. Well, it'll look exactly the same as it does now, because I'm painting the car white and it's got white primer on it right now. So it's going to look exactly the same as it does now. I'm using zero paint, so it's going to be flat, or sort of a satin finish, much like what this looks like right now. So I don't know if I'll do an update after I've sprayed that. Probably the next is going on to the decaling. So anyways, I'll go in and get the color coat on. I'll throw a coat of clear on it as well, in preparation to get the decals done. So I'll check in then. Actually, I'll probably end this episode here, and then the next episode we'll get into the painting and finishing, painting, decaling, clear coating of the body. So anyways, we'll color an episode there, and we will see you on the next one. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and take care. Bye bye.